Okay, so good morning, everybody. And to those of you on the other side of the pond, good evening or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. So the topic today, as you know, in the Facebook group, I always want to know what you want to learn. And this is something that Cabernet brought up as something that she wanted to learn about, particularly for a friend. And I'm going to mute. I hear some birds. I'm going to mute you. So this topic I find to be extremely important at all times, but particularly right now, we're experiencing a sense of anxiety and depression that is taking hold of people that to date haven't experienced depression. So I find it very, very timely. And we may think that depression is one thing, or it looks a certain way, or it only affects a certain type of person with a chemical imbalance, or someone who may have suffered a traumatic loss. It's like that person over there, but depression can affect us all, right? No one's immune. And it can also affect you if you are close to somebody who's experiencing depression. So in all of these ways, I just think such a great topic today. So thank you, Cabernet, for bringing it to the fore. I do want to start by saying I'm not a doctor. I do not diagnose, prognose, prescribe, but I can impart certain self-care techniques and tools that have worked in my practice and have worked in my self-care life. And this is what I want to share with you today. Okay. So as I was saying, everyone has this potentiality to experience depression. And it can be constant. It can be a chronic condition. It could also be sudden. It could be acute, right? Something that can just come on suddenly because of something that has happened, either on the outside or from within. It could last a couple of minutes, a couple hours, days, months, even years. If you or someone you know has a depression that is severe, or I would actually say if you're experiencing depression at all, certainly seek medical attention, seek guidance, talk about it, reach out for help, know that there are resources and that you're absolutely not alone at all, at all. It's like the moment we speak, the moment we realize we're not alone, right? The more specific we are with our story and the more we say it aloud, the more we realize that there are others just like us, okay? So like I was saying, if you experience depression for any length of time, they say, 2 years. If you have a depression for 2 years, it is chronic or persistent depressive disorder. But these are just labels. And if you know me and my practice, it's very, very important to me that when I'm with clients and also when I'm just with myself, that I try to eradicate all the labels, right? So I release judgment. I release judging myself, trying to control anything or trying to fix anything. I really, really make sure to accept who I am and the person who I am with, be it a friend or a client. So causes, I'll talk a little bit at first and I'm going to dive right in because I do want to get into the tools because those are the most important. Causes can vary. Certainly it could be a genetic disposition, family history, chemical imbalance. It can come on for sleep deprivation, right? An event or a situation may incite depression, a loss, certainly, of someone very close to us, or even people that are quite far away. If you're empathic or just like a compassionate human, those around the world that may be suffering may incite depression as well, right? It can also occur if you're on certain medications. They can cause depression, or recreational drugs, right? Then we're causing hormonal imbalances. That being said, unless someone has depression on that chemical or hormonal level, like a hormonal imbalance, I find depression to be highly emotional. Sometimes it might feel devoid of emotion in certain stages of depression, but at its root, it's emotional, right? There's something there that you might feel right away. You might feel that sadness or loss or grief or anger. And there's also an emotion that's going to be underneath the depression. And this is what we really want to get to, right? So we might feel just incredible sadness, but under that sadness is the anger. And the anger is what we want to tend to, as well as the sadness. And I bet even under that anger, there's other layers too, layers that get to be undone, right? So in addition to therapy and talking about it and potentially even medication, right? That you or a friend or a client may be on, there are other things you can do. So we're going to dive in. And the first thing that I believe is extremely important is acceptance, right? Accepting where you are. So accepting the emotional gravity of what is happening within, right? Accepting the depression. So you're acknowledging its existence instead of trying to push it down or away. This is very, very important, right? We want to give it light, not more darkness. We want to bring it into the light so we can look at it. And that first stage is acceptance. There's a really great quote. I shared it last weekend, 2 weekends ago. It's all a blur when I did the International Reflexology Conference, right? It's a quote by David R. Hawkins. I love it. I think it's really, really prevalent. And not all of you were there, so I want to share it with you today. Okay. It is something he calls steps for self-healing. So we could actually take it across all of our classes because I think it's relative to all of them, but certainly today. So I'm going to read it to you now. So he writes, to put it simply, the consciousness techniques of radical truth have 5 steps in healing a particular illness. Number 1, letting go of resisting the sensory experience of it. Letting go of resisting, right? And that's where the acceptance comes in. Number 2, no longer putting names or labels on it. Yes. Number 3, using no words at all in the welcoming of the experience or the inner sensations. Number 4, canceling the mental label or thought form or belief system and replacing it with the truth. I no longer believe in that. I am an infinite. I am not subject to that. I am only subject to what I hold in my mind. And number 5, choosing the energy field of love, which heals. Okay. And we'll be working with that today because we will be working with the heart. So very, very important, accept the experience. Express the feelings. I feel like writing about it, journaling about it, writing a song about it, playing music about it can be very, very cathartic. And again, is if you don't have someone that you feel you can talk to and you are feeling that isolation and you're feeling very alone, having the expression, even pen to paper, can be really powerful. And if you can actually speak it aloud, even if you're alone, right? That's why songs are so powerful, whether it's your own or somebody else's, and just giving those feelings breath and putting them out into the world. It's almost like energetically it leaves our bodies in some way, right? Those of you who are singers, you know this. You know that when you admit, I mean, it could be emotional, right? Some people, when they sing for the first time with an open throat, they cry because they feel suddenly freed. Right? So in the chamber of depression, we can feel so isolated and so tied in that expression is almost like particles or cells that get to be released out into the world. And the world, the earth, nature can take it, right? And certainly the ground and all the electromagnetic, everything is holding space to help us eradicate those emotions that feel so tied up within, okay? So writing about the pain, writing about the feelings that are present, and then feeling your way into the sensory experience of your own vital life force energy that might feel very, very depleted, but it is there. Even if it's just a granule, there is a part of all of us, just like there's a part of all of us that is deeply sad and angry and all the emotions. They're present within all of us. We all have them, whether we experience them heavily or not. We all have access to them. This then means that even in your most depressed state, You have access to joy. You do have access to laughter. You do have access to energy, and that life force energy that breeds all things, right? Okay. So write down, speak to people, talk to people you know who support you, and remind yourself that there is this kind of love out in the world, and it might even come from an animal, right? If you don't feel like you have somebody who you can share with, okay? Accept, express, and have gratitude for all the little parts of thyself which reside within, okay? So we're gonna talk about, this will be the last thing as far as me talking, and then I swear we're gonna do some tools, but I just wanna show you a little, in my ebook on reflexology protocols for diseases, conditions, syndromes, and disorders. It's in alphabetical order, and under D, there's depression. And so I wanna show you the definition, the causes, the reflexology points, and then I'm gonna show you the reflexology points and how to address them, okay? So I'm going to just share my screen. Okay. So depression, definition, a disorder or condition that perpetuates a depressive state. Symptoms, mood swings, right? Variance in mood, feelings of hopelessness, changes in appetite, difficulty sleeping, lack of interest in daily activities. Okay, so we also, I mentioned a few other types of depression, because certainly postpartum depression is something that might come in. Persistent depressive disorder is just characterized by that 2-year period I was saying. I actually think if you're experiencing depression for over a year, it's persistent, right? And then of course clinical, so I mean that's defined. Certainly, if it's postpartum, you would add the endocrine system and hypothalamus, and thyroid and ovaries, okay? So this is what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna start with reflexology today. We're gonna do solar plexus, adrenals, diaphragm, cerebrum, that whole top part of the brain, right? The hippocampus, amygdala, pituitary gland, okay? And I'm gonna show you now on the feet and on the hands. So let's do it. Let's go. All right, so with these reflexology points, I'm gonna start with the feet and then we'll move to the hands. So the solar plexus, you can see my little foot here, is right in the center underneath. These are your metatarsal heads, right? They make up the ball of the foot. Underneath that, we have what we call the diaphragm line, that upper portion of the diaphragm. Right in the middle at the apex, it kind of looks like a diaphragm, right? It goes up and then back down again. Right at that apex is the solar plexus reflexology area, right? As reflexologists, this is an area that at the very beginning of a session, when the feet are in front of us, we would hold both sides at the same time. It says to the client or your friend or whoever you're working on that you're safe. It's okay to relax. It's okay to let go. Right, very, very important area. I usually start it when I move to one foot to the other, I do it again, and then I always end the session with this. Okay, so the solar plexus. The adrenals would be a little further down, if you were just to go down about 1 inch and over between that first and second metatarsal. It's different for everybody, but you'll feel it. Most of us have experienced a certain level of stress in our lives, and the adrenals take the brunt of that, because our adrenals are our fight or flight glands, right? They're receiving messages to produce cortisol and maybe overproduce cortisol. So you might experience pain in there. It might feel really good in there. It might feel like a little rock, right? Like there's a holding pattern there. So you would do adrenals. You would do both sides. You would do the diaphragm, which you know, that can really free up the breath, especially if you're holding on, right? And not breathing at all. I find with state, any kind of state, depressive or otherwise, it is we sometimes just kind of go within and we like stare at a point. I find the best thing to do is actually to avert your gaze, to just literally look at something else. If you ever find yourself locked in a position and feeling something really intensely, and whether you're crying or, whatever that feeling is that's locking you into one part, literally lift your eyes and look in a direction, and then look in a direction again, and begin to, and I feel it very, and I encourage you to try this too. Whether you're experiencing depression or not, just explore what it's like to look in one direction or the other as you're experiencing something, right? This is something that you can do with certain other techniques, tapping and other things as well, where when you avert your gaze, it can really shift the change. For the cerebrum, it's just going to be the top of the toe, right? Because that's the top of the head. So you would work the top of the toe. You come down. Right in the center of the toe is the pituitary reflexology point, right? Right in the center of that swirl. To access the hippocampus, hippocampus has a lot to do. It does, short-term memory, and there's a lot of things it's responsible for, but also for mood. So anyone experiencing those mood swings, hippocampus or hippocampi, because there's two, right, is going to be on either side of that pituitary gland, okay? So if you're on the pituitary gland, I find the best way to do is to rock, and I'll show you that with my fingers. But if you are here in the center of that point, if you rock to the side and to the other side like this, you're going to get to the amygdala, huge relationships to how we experience fear, right? So the amygdala and anxiety, and you're going to get the hippocampus, or the amygdala and the hippocampi, because there's two of them, right? You have that pituitary gland in the center. It's on the center right there. But on one side, you have one amygdala and the other hippocampi, right? So you're just going to rock side to side to get to those areas. Okay, so that's what you would do. That's your general protocol. If you didn't write it down, just think. They're all kind of in the same area, right? It's like diaphragm, solar plexus, adrenal, and then work that big toe. So in the hands, same thing, right? That solar plexus is right in the center of the apex. And you would hold always for 5 seconds if you're pressing on a point. If it's an area, you would work it differently. The diaphragm would come through here. The adrenal, the emotional adrenal, comes through here. There's an emotional one, and then there's an adrenal proper right in the center there of that. We call it a phanar eminence, right? That mound. Usually it's very pronounced nowadays with all the work we do. You would do adrenal, and then you would detail the finger. So you would start with the pituitary gland, and then you would rock side to side. And you might even feel some pain or crunchy bits in there as you're working the pituitary and the amygdala and the hippocampus. If you rock up a little bit, if you're having any kind of disturbance in sleep, you'll get to the pineal gland as well. Okay. So that is your first, that's the reflexology. Does anybody have any questions about the reflexology points? Any clarity? I love that you're working on it. I love that, Lori. Any questions about what I showed? Is there, do you need any clarity on anything before we move on?
Chantel, would you ever do anything grounding? Because I actually do like kidney points or things down at the ankle too, so that people can actually pull the energy down from their thinking or the perseveration that they might have with the depression, pulling it through, like, and even the heart. Another thing would be, I would also do the heart probably too. So
I would follow your intuition.
Okay.
For some people, it will be grounding. For some, it depends on how they're experiencing the depression and where it's coming from. I find actually it's usually the opposite. There needs to be a freeing up in the brain. Yeah, not a grounding down, but a freeing up and a letting go.
I think the agitated depression, that's the difference.
Yeah.
So
and where is it coming from, right? Is it coming from grief, a feeling of loss? That would absolutely be hard, right? You know this. That's absolutely hard. If it's coming from this sense of something that's repeating again and again in their heads, I would pull it up and out and free it, and I would even work with the aura. Yeah. And I would work with the aura also. I'm going to talk about gemstones in a second, because oftentimes depression might be coming from within, but often, not oftentimes, but another place it could be coming from is around us. It's something that's coming from the outside. Something happened to us, right? Even if it's something simple as a boss, right? A boss yelling at you again and again. It's something that you need to clear around yourself, right? And I would actually do that. I'll bring it up right now with black tourmaline, right? Black tourmaline looks like this. You can see it. This is a rough cut. This dispels negative energies within and around us, right? Also negative, like intense psychic energies that might be coming in and trying to attack. So black tourmaline is really great. And I would literally close my eyes and clear the space around me using my imagination to clear away anything, any blockages or holding patterns that I feel in the fields around us, any of the auric fields, and I would release them and see them dissipating. Yeah. Good to have a few stones in your back pocket.
Chantel, sorry, what was that stone called again?
Yes, black. Okay, so there are many different colors of tourmaline. This one is black tourmaline. Tourmaline is Tourmaline, I believe.
I'll Google it.
Yeah.
I find, sorry if I asked, I know you're probably going to go through it, but I try and ground myself in a bubble, but I'm not very good at it. Like a Reiki bubble type thing, but I'm rubbish at it. So at night I am so tired doing some people's treatments. So I'm going to try that because I'm really exhausted doing it after.
I was just having a conversation with someone who's in my Reiki class just yesterday, and she works a lot with a lot of people during the day, and she's actually an esthetician, and she was saying, I just did a 3-hour session, and I went over, like, you know, she was like, I don't know how do I get rid of that? And the big part is clearing, and that energetic clearing. The bubble is great, especially before or during something that's happening that is very intense. But afterwards, I would absolutely do the aura clearing, and I would dry brush. I would do all this after every single session, dry brush. And for those of you who don't know what it is, you're simply taking the palms of your hand and you're brushing over your body. Absolutely your thorax area, right? Doing the crosses. You're going from your shoulder out your hands, fingertips. And I do it 3 times. And listen, even if you don't work with clients, like just being around somebody is like, oh, you might want to like run to the bathroom and just be like, oh my God. Like, and I'll usually do my head and my face. I'm like, okay, now I'm better. And then you're ready to be with the next person or be with your kids or your, partner at night and not feel like you're taking everybody's energy.
I'll try that. It might look a bit strange, but I'll try it.
It's going to be totally strange. And then you get to laugh about it and have fun with it. And I wouldn't do it in front of others. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, great. Okay, so we just did reflexology. Next up, absolutely, we just started to touch on it. It would be Reiki work. And if you don't do Reiki, if you're not attuned, it doesn't matter. It's a very powerful practice. It's there for you. Very easy to learn, but we all have the potential to feel energy and move energy, right? The only difference with Reiki is you're attuned to that certain lineage, right? But with energy work, you can, with the palms of your hands, I find one thing is the most important. We just mentioned dry brushing to get rid of any kind of negative energies that are coming from around you that are causing depression, causing anger, or causing anxiety. But if you're feeling that depression, especially like Lori was talking about, coming from your heart, especially with loss or grief, you simply take one palm. If you want, you could rub them together to generate heat. But you just take that palm and you place it on your hand, on your heart. And then with your other hand, you place that on top. So you feel a little bit more of that weight. You can do it in bed when you're falling asleep, right? You could do it first thing in the morning when you wake up. You could do it when you're feeling the sensations of depression or anxiety, right? So that's all you're doing. You're just envisioning being with your heart. And you're allowing the heat of your palms and the healing energy that comes out of these paws. They're there for ourselves and for others, right? So that would just be that's the energy work you do, is giving attention to your heart with both palms. And next up, you would do a Taoist exercise, right? Taoism, it's sometimes spelled with a D. I spell it with a T, Taoism. This is good for the heart. It's also good for the lungs. All you do is take those hands and a couple inches in front of your heart, you hold them here. What you do is, as you could do it with your eyes closed or a lowered gaze, you're just going to envision energy, breath, light coming into your right fingertips. You're going to move through your hand into your arm, your lower arm, upper arm, go across that inner portion of heart and through heart and lungs, out the other upper arm, lower arm, hand, and back in again. So it's literally doing this circling gesture, going in the fingertips, hand, arm, heart, chest, arm, hand, and again. And you can envision doing it 7 times or as many times as you need. So let's do it together. So you're holding it in front of your heart. I'm gonna go ahead and mute you. Okay, okay. So together, lower gaze or your eyes closed. Taking a breath in, envisioning light coming through the fingertips of your right, and with the frequency or the pace you want, imagine that light going through and moving through. If you're having a difficult time having it move, you can, with your eyes closed, literally take your eyes and watch it, right? So your eye, if someone were looking at you, they might see that your eyes are moving under your eyelids, and that can help you if you're not good at visualizing, right? Literally using your eyes to follow the energy. And you could even increase the speed, right, as it's going within. Okay. So it's circling and filling the area with loving light, and it's all the love of your heart. If this is too difficult, it's to hold up your arms, you could drop your arms and just do it like this. All right, still at the level of your heart, chest, lung area. It's just a little bit different when you're doing the visualization because you don't have this arc to work with. Okay. Next up, we're going to do mudras. You know me by now, so you know mudras are like just such a huge part of my life. I use existing mudras. I create mudras. I create reflexology mudras. I'm obsessed with the mudra. You know, all we're doing is just using our hands. And like I said, sometimes with depression, you just feel like you can't do anything. So something as simple as just moving fingers might be the only thing you can do, right? Reflexology might be like too much. So we're going to begin with Musty Mudra. All it means, in Sanskrit anyway, is it means fists. You're just closing your hands like this, right? Lori, remember from the directionals, right? How being on the side, facing south, we're holding our fists and we're expressing ourselves in that Taoist exercise. Same thing, but just the hands, right? So this mudra, if I'm experiencing anger, frustration, the kind of deeper levels, when you get to those deeper levels of depression, when you start to get underneath it, the anger that's underneath it, this is a powerful mudra, right? What I like to do is after I'm holding it and I've gathered up all of that energy, all of that anger, all of that frustration, is I let it go and I splay my fingers and I exhale through my mouth. So I would hold, gather all the sensations, anger about what's happening in the world, what's happening in my life, what's happening with whatever. I've gathered it all up and then I go, and I let it go. Again, with the expression of breath, with sound. You could, even if you really want to release a sound, you could go, ha, and release it with that and see what works better. Sometimes there's a feeling of insecurity to release sound or feel silly to you, so the breath might be just enough. Okay. The next one, the Pripti, is going to be thumb to ring finger. This is really good for your nervous system, right? So that more hyperactive activity, you're just coming through here. Prithvi. And you can, I'm holding them up so you can see, you just place them on your lap, right? The last one is the Prana Mudra. You're adding the pinky to where you were already. So you were here, Prithvi, Prana. Prana meaning breath, life force, energy, right? And then bringing your hands in prayer. That's your fourth mudra, right? The Anjali Mudra. So what I like to do is I like to envision what that mudra represents, splay and move to the next one. In this way, there's almost this undulating, wave-like nature to what's moving through my hands. So I begin with the fist. I'm going to hold them up like this, but again, you could have them just by your sides. So I have my mushti. I gather it up. I splay. Thumb to ring. Calming the nervous system. Splay. Prana Mudra. Life force energy coming within. I splay. I bring the hands together. If you're moved to, or you feel at such a loss that you want to say a prayer, you could do so in this prayer position, asking for guidance from Source, God, the divine, nature, the earth, and then you release it. And you could do it in cycles, right? Mushti, release. Mushti, release. Prana, release. Prayer. Okay, so you have now the acceptance, expressing oneself creatively or through writing, being aware of the sensations that are dwelling within as well. They're just not as prominent, and being grateful for that tiny bit of joy you might feel, for that moment of laughter. So gratitude. You have your reflexology areas. You have Reiki or energy work, tending to your heart with your palms. You have a Taoist exercise that is literally moving in that beautiful energy and washing out what may be really weighing heavy on your heart. And then you have your 4 mudras that you can do in succession. Okay, and all of these can be done whether it's acute or chronic depression, if it's the blues. I said, you know, I was mentioning the Holly Go Lightly phrase from Breakfast at Tiffany's, right, where she says, you know, the blues are just one thing, like it's just, you know, you've gained some weight, or it's, you know, it's raining too much, but the mean reds are like when you're afraid and you don't know what you're afraid of, right? And this is actually kind of what Lori and I were talking about, right? That sense where it's like there's almost like fear, right? And it's coming to a place that's like up here or even at the level of the solar plexus, and you can let it go. And then finally with gemstones, I say black tourmaline, because then in this way, we can clear away the negative energies that may be coming from the outside or from within. Also know that you can use any kind of pink or soft, like pink or soft orange stone. Sometimes people do use green for the heart, right? So I have orange calcite, I have selenite. Rose quartz is usually what people use for the heart, but I'm more drawn to selenite. Malachite is another one, this green stone. So I encourage you, if you're interested in stones at all, to go to a store and kind of see what moves you and what calls out to you, and know that usually the black stones, especially that tourmaline, great for dispelling the negative energies within and around us. And then those softer pinks, those oranges and the greens are going to be really, really nice for the heart. Okay, so that concludes our class. Are there any illuminations, any questions, anything that comes up before we close?
Chantel, sorry, I've got another question.
Please,
When you did the routine type thing there, you did it quite fast in the end. Does it depend how you feel, what your speed yourself?
yes, and actually,
Right, okay.
yeah, and it's interesting. I would say do it quite slow in the beginning, because they might be new positions to you, right? So really you could just do the one, right? And splay. Maybe you do that for a few days, and you're just working with harnessing the anger underneath the depression and letting it go. Then you could try the next one, right? Really helping the nervous system, letting it go, igniting prana, right? And then you can try them. It's almost like they say this, Dawson, you'll understand this one. It's like when you're learning lines and for a script, if you ever need to, one of the best things you could do is just learn a line again and again and again. And then you had another line, and then you got 2 lines, and you got 3 lines, and you just build on it. So I would work very, very slowly. For me, I even walk when I'm doing it. I really envision it coming in, being harnessed and splayed, coming in, being harnessed and splayed, and coming in. And I even like tap my foot. So there's this gesture. We see this in prayer too, right? In many cultures, right? As we're like giving it up to God or whatever, we're kind of doing that rocking gesture. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. I'll practice.
Okay, good.
Thank
And let me know how it goes.
I will.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you, Dawson. Super duper. Any other last things before we close and move into our days and nights?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye. I see all your little
Yeah.
faces there.
Bye.
Bye.